Thank you for listening. This is the Catholic Lady, and we are reading Great Line of God by Taylor Caldwell. This is Chapter 10, Part 3. Alice's son has just arrived from Rome, and he is a member of the Praetorian Guard. He is Hillel ben Baruch's cousin. And he's just arrived at the house of Aulus Platonius. "I have heard nothing," said Aulus, but his soldier's face quickened. "I have 10 of my men with me, mother," said Milo to Hannah. "They are my lieutenants. Is there fare for them before they go to their assigned quarters in the city?" Hannah, after one fearful glance at her son's face, hastened from the room to order food for Milo's men, and she took with her the cheese on the table, for now she would serve meat for a hearty meal. "Tell me," said Aulus, "now that you have dispatched your mother, what evil news is it? On this day I hope to be joyful." "It was none of my affair, except that I am a Roman officer, but I am of the Praetorian Guard, and it was a matter of the regular military, not mine. Nevertheless, I wish to intercede, or perhaps mitigate." Milo's glance again flashed to Hillel, and the strong lips became somber. "You must believe I did what I could, but the provocation was enormous." "Tell us," said Aulus, and he sat down as if suddenly weary, and Hillel's heart became sick. "The Essenes and the Zealots," said Milo, and he muttered a Roman oath. "Why did they not accept the immutable? They created a riot inside the Damascus gate, and they were armed and were wild as barbarians, for they had came from the desert but today. And they murdered one of your brother centurions, my father, and 20 of his men. They were then overpowered." He stared into the depths of his goblet. "There are 100. They have been thrown into prison. A number of others were slain on the spot in battle." "By Castor and by Paulus," cried Aulus, and groaned and seized his ears in his hands. Milo's lips tightened. "At least 200 Jews of this city joined the rebels. They are also in prison, and those who were not are slain." He stood up, put his hands on his hips, and walked slowly up and down the room, and could not look again at Hillel's agonized face. "For Jews to kill Jews is reprehensible enough, according to the law," said Milo, "but for Jews to kill Roman men and their officer is intolerable." He paused and stared down at the stone floor between his feet. "There has not been such a riot in the city for several years. In the struggle, a large number of innocent women and children were injured, for the riot embraced many streets. Several shops were set afire. A Sadducee priest in his litter was dragged forth and beaten and thrown to the wall. The guard was attacked. Animals were slain. The stones ran with blood and the gutters. I did what I could," he repeated. "I attempted to restrain. I was reviled as a Roman swine and a murderer. I spoke to the barbarians, then in Aramaic, and begged them to flee. If some had not listened, the prisons would hold many more than they do at this hour." He looked at his father straightly, and his shoulders appeared to become broader. "I am a Roman officer of the Praetorian Guard, and I must pay my respects to Pontius Pilate, for whom I have a message from my general. My allegiance is to Rome. You must believe me that I felt as if my flesh were being torn from my bones and my vitals exposed, my father." "Yes," said Aulus, and averted his head. "I carry with me not only a letter from Caesar Tiberius, whom I serve, but his ring of authority in my pouch," said Milo. "It concerns Herod Antipas, who has been plotting with Agrippa." Father and son exchanged a long, dark look. Hillel whispered, "My people, my unfortunate people." His whole face trembled. Then Milo said, "My people also." He sat down suddenly as if overwhelmed. "An order has gone out for the arrest of known malcontents," he went on. "Though they are not concerned with this, discipline must be enforced at any cost, and potential rebels punished as an example." He hesitated. "It is very bad. The centurion is the son of the senator Antonius Gallio, dear friend of Caesar's. Octavius Gallo, cried Aulus in desperate horror. We were subalterns together. In the name of the gods, the old senator will exact blood and death for this. He is a veritable Caligula, said Milo, and mad as he. Did he not wish to murder all the Jews in the Trans-Tiber only 2 years ago? Yes. My God, said Hillel in anguish. What have they done, my reckless people, those wild youths burning with patriotism and love of God and country? They have destroyed themselves and others. They have set themselves as frail battering rams of flesh against a wall of stone. But they will not desist, though they die of it. What have they accomplished but torment and death for themselves and their brothers? Yet I cannot find it in my soul to upbraid them, to denounce them. For if a man has no country of his own, no land which is free and his own, what has he? He is less than a beast who does not know that he has nothing. Aulus and Milo looked at him in compassionate silence. He said to them, If Rome were seized by an alien force and subjugated and enslaved and robbed and oppressed, would you not rise to deliver her, though you knew it was hopeless? Yes, said Aulus. I would give my life for my country, though it were futile. And I, said Milo, would give my life for both Rome and for Israel. Is not my state a wretched one? It was then that Hannah came back into the room, pushing aside a curtain to do so, and they saw her pale countenance and her shaking lips that she had heard. She carried a silver platter of cold meats in her hands. She laid it on the table, and then her gaze wandered from Hillel to her husband and then to her son. Is there naught we can do? She asked. I did what I could, said Milo. In a pretense of cutting the rebels down, I dispersed them and urged them to disband and flee. A number looked into my face, and then obeyed and fled. But now, said Aulus, Milo lifted his hands, and then let them fall on his bare knees, and the gesture was both Jewish and eloquent. Aulus turned suddenly to Hillel. Shabuah ben Abraham is the father of your dead wife, Deborah, and his grandson is to marry your daughter. He has a powerful influence with Pontius Pilate. Shabuah ben Abraham, said Hillel, in a voice heavy with loathing, and like a curse in its intonation. When has he ever interceded for his people? Would he jeopardize his security and his luxurious life for the favor of Romans? And the favor of Romans? Forgive me, Aulus, but my heart feels as if it is draining away my blood. Shabuah ben Abraham. Nevertheless, said Aulus Platonius, you must appeal to him. Desperate causes demand desperate men. Ah, I have remembered. There is an influential Jew here whom Shabuah honors in courts, Joseph of Arimathea, who, it is said, is very mysterious, but more important, very rich. He is honored by Pontius Pilate, the procurator. Pilate is superstitious. It is said that Joseph has told him he will participate in an event which will shake the world forever, and so Pilate believes that one day he will be named Emperor of Rome. He too courts Joseph. Joseph is of a great family, and a pious Jew, and a Pharisee, and a member of the Sanhedrin. Hillel, in his agony of confusion and grief, pondered. He had heard the name before, but could not immediately remember. But he had learned enough from his wife's kinsman to doubt that such a powerful Jew, who had not been beggared nor persecuted by the Romans, would assist his miserable fellow Jews, whom he would stigmatize as the market rabble, or insurrectionists, or troublemakers, or rioters for the mere sake of rioting. To the Essenes and the Zealots had no reputation but that of violence and excessive zeal among the more powerful Jews, and especially the priesthood. He began to shake his head dolorously, and then paused. It would do no harm. He said, Aulus Platonius and Milo, I understand why you yourselves as Romans cannot appeal to any puissant man, and particularly not to Romans in this matter. But I shall appeal both to Shabuah ben Abraham and Joseph of Arimathea. I fear that it will bring no succor to my unfortunate people. Nevertheless, I will try. He rose. It was then that Hannah said, You have not dined, Hillel. The men need sustenance. Therefore, compose yourself. Is not my dear son here, who is of your blood? To leave now would be a discourtesy to him and harm to yourself. Food can give a man courage. This spoke Hannah Bosh Judah, the mother of children, and Hillel remained. The end of chapter 10. So in this chapter we meet the names of some very influential people in the future, that is part of our Bible. One is Titus, and one is Joseph of Arimathea. And the Essenes, who were a sect of very religious that waited outside in the desert for the Messiah. And they were also known for fighting the Romans, and they would often make raids and do many different things like that. But they hid in the desert. So we will encounter them some more and further into the book. But we will pause now and begin chapter 11 shortly.